Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed.
Mm.
Today, we're plunging to something really fundamental. How do human societies actually get, organize, and, well, express knowledge?
Exactly.
We're exploring the incredible diversity in how people understand their world and how they share that understanding.
Yeah, and our deep dive today, it really unpacks a fascinating chapter from human societies. A brief introduction. We'll look at core definitions, some really powerful examples, and the connections, these surprising connections between knowledge systems and cultural expression across different societies.
Okay.
You'll see pretty quickly how valuable these diverse perspectives are. They offer insights that, frankly, challenge our own assumptions.
Okay, let's start right there with the idea of knowledge. Seems basic, but what is it really, and how do societies even get it?
Well, fundamentally, knowledge is information, data that's been organized, coherently organized to explain something, some phenomenon. And societies get this information through all sorts of ways: practical experience, observation, experiments, talking to each other, communication. And in many cultures, even contact with the supernatural. It's how they make sense of things. And it's really important to distinguish knowledge from wisdom. Wisdom is more about the moral, the ethical application of that knowledge.
So every community then, whether it's a huge city or a tiny village, is constantly building its own unique set of knowledge. And it's shaped by its environment, how it gets food, its beliefs.
Precisely, yeah. All societies gather information using basically two kinds of methods. Empirical stuff you can observe, measure,
Okay.
and non-empirical methods. These often involve spiritual understandings, tradition. Now, in Western industrialized societies, we tend to call our systems science. But in many non-Western traditional societies, you have these holistic systems often called ethnoscience or folk science. And what's really profound about ethnoscience isn't just how broad it is, but how it often weaves together things we separate, like science and religion, into one complete way of understanding.
That integration. Yeah, that's a powerful point. It's quite different from how we often break things down.
It really is a stark contrast to our, fragmented modern disciplines.
And for any knowledge to actually matter, it has to be shared, communicated,
that.
right? Otherwise,
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's just lost completely. In Western societies, we lean heavily on formal schooling, books, articles, a pretty structured, extensive system, K-12, college degrees, all that. But in traditional societies, it's often different. Knowledge gets passed down through hands-on learning, often from older generations, and non-empirical knowledge that flows through rich oral traditions.
like storytelling.
Exactly. And religious specialists, shamans, for example, they often go through these really intensive apprenticeships to master their crafts. They acquire both the empirical and the non-empirical understanding needed.
This really underlines how much we, in Western societies, could potentially learn from others. It makes you think about intellectual property, that whole concept.
It really does. And here's a significant truth. The Western world genuinely has a tremendous amount to learn. The sheer volume of intellectual property encoded in the religions and oral traditions of traditional peoples is just vast.
Wow.
We're talking about potentially countless new medicines, new foods, industrial crops from plants and animals that these communities have known intimately for centuries. Even things like sustainable farming practices. We're reforming ours today based on local traditional knowledge.
But how that knowledge gets shared, or sometimes, well, taken, that raises some serious ethical questions, doesn't it?
You've hit on a critical point there. The whole issue of intellectual property rights for traditional knowledge is huge. Many argue quite forcefully that Western societies essentially steal this knowledge. No compensation, no recognition.
Like an extension of colonialism.
Some see it exactly that way, yeah. An extension of colonial practices. There have been proposals like trying to extend copyright laws to cover unwritten traditions, to try and address this imbalance, to ensure fair recognition, benefit sharing. It's complex.
It sounds incredibly complex. Okay, let's zoom back in on ethnoscience. You said it's broad. What are some practical ways this deep traditional knowledge shows up?
Well, it covers an incredible range. Take ethnobiology, that's the knowledge of living things in a society.
Right.
And that breaks down further. You have ethnobotany, which is all about plants. What's edible, what's poisonous, what's medicinal, what has spiritual significance. Compare that to most Westerners. Our plant knowledge is often limited to the grocery store produce aisle, right?
That's embarrassingly true for many of us, yeah.
And then there's ethnozoology. That's the knowledge of animals. For survival, especially for hunters, this is critical. You need deep knowledge of an animal's biology, its habits, where it finds food, water holes, and not just for one species, but many. Lacking this knowledge, it could literally mean you don't eat.
And it's not just living things, right? It goes beyond that to the environment itself, even the sky.
Exactly. Societies build up this incredible knowledge of their abiotic, their non-living environment too. Farmers, for example. They need detailed understanding of soils, water, what crops grow where, how to fertilize, rotate crops, let land rest. And often, this involves understanding how to appeal for supernatural help, like for rain.
Right?
Then you have ethnoastronomy. That's the knowledge of the cosmos, the stars, the planets. Think about the ancient Maya calendar. Astonishingly accurate, actually more accurate than our own Western calendar. Even now, we still need that leap day every 4 years.
That's amazing.
Or consider Polynesian navigation. People navigated huge stretches of the Pacific Ocean using only the stars, ocean currents, water temperature, floating debris, even the flight ranges of birds. No modern instruments at all, just deep, integrated knowledge.
Truly astounding. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about health. Every society has its own ways of dealing with healing, with well-being.
They certainly do, and this whole area falls under ethnomedicine. In many traditional societies, the medical specialists, often shamans, as we mentioned, combine religious and medical roles. They treat everything from physical injuries to organic illnesses, and they often possess extensive knowledge of substances that can alter reality, hallucinogens, and the like.
Is there a good example of this kind of traditional knowledge in action?
Oh, absolutely. The Navajo hantavirus story from 1991 is a powerful one. Western scientists eventually identified deer mice as the vector carrying the virus. But traditional Navajo beliefs, they had long recognized mice as disease carriers and had specific centuries-old precautions.
Wow, so they already knew.
In their own framework, yes. Navajo elders at the time actually blamed the outbreak partly on younger generations moving away from these traditional practices and beliefs. It's a stark example of ancient knowledge sort of predating modern scientific confirmation.
So it's like traditional societies have their own very sophisticated pharmaceuticals.
Precisely. And that field is called ethnopharmacology. It's the study of native pharmacology, basically. The medical side of ethnobotany we talked about. Shamans, healers, they possess this vast library of knowledge about plants and other substances for medical use.
It's incredible how much modern medicine owes to these traditions.
It really is. It's striking when you learn that nearly half of today's Western medicines, things like aspirin even, originated from plants first used in traditional societies.
Half. That's huge.
It is. And it underscores the ethical issues, again, about stealing native intellectual property. But it also highlights the tragedy of losing this knowledge. As traditional societies and their expert practitioners disappear, we're potentially losing countless miracle drugs forever.
That's a sobering thought. Okay, moving from healing to making things technology. We tend to have this bias thinking Western tech is always superior. But it sounds like that's too simplistic.
Way too simplistic. Absolutely. Yes, Western tech can be complex, powerful, but it often depends heavily on a whole infrastructure behind it. A rifle, for instance, is pretty useless without industrially manufactured bullets, right?
Right. Good point.
A bow and arrow, though, that represents a different kind of sophistication, self-sufficiency. It can often be made and maintained locally from available materials. And many traditional technologies are incredibly clever and remain useful. Think about something as basic as pounding a tent stake into the ground with a rock. That's hammer technology. Simple, effective, available.
Okay, fair enough. Any more complex examples of really clever traditional tech?
Oh, definitely. A fantastic example is the wind catcher facilities.
Yeah.
Bajir in Farsi. You find them in the Middle East. Imagine these tall, sort of chimney-like towers built onto buildings. If you picture figure 12.1, you'd see these structures.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
For millennia, these things have cooled buildings without any electricity. They catch the wind, channel it down, sometimes over water or through cool underground spaces, and circulate naturally cool air. They could even produce ice in some designs. It's elegant, sustainable, just brilliant engineering.
It's incredible. Passive air conditioning from ancient times. What about technologies that were maybe almost lost?
Here's a really fascinating story, highlighted in Spotlight 12.1 in the chapter. It's about ancient Inca weaving technology. They produce these absolutely exquisite textiles from vicuña wool.
Vicuña, like llamas.
Related, yes, but smaller, wilder, and their wool is incredibly fine, finer than cashmere. These textiles were apparently so luxurious they were reserved exclusively for Inca royalty.
Wow.
But then the Spanish arrived. Colonization nearly wiped out the industry. The vicuña itself became endangered, it seemed lost. But In recent years, there's been this amazing revival.
Really?
Through careful efforts, selectively breeding the vicuña again, relearning and reestablishing the traditional weaving craft, it's created this niche, incredibly expensive but valuable textile industry, a single vicuña sport jacket. It can cost upwards of $20,000.
$20,000.
Yep. But it's bringing vital economic income and, just as importantly, cultural revitalization back to the local Andean populations. A real success story.
That is an incredible story, resilience and ingenuity. Okay, so beyond the practical tools and techniques, humans are also deeply expressive creatures. How does that side of things manifest across societies?
Right. That brings us squarely into the realm of expressive culture, and it shows up mainly in two big ways. As various kinds of play and various forms of art both serve all sorts of purposes and functions in a society. And we shouldn't forget body decoration and modification either, that's part of it too.
Let's start with play. We usually think of it for kids, but you're saying it's broader.
Much broader. Not at all just for kids. While children certainly play, people of all ages engage in play. Think of it as activity done primarily for enjoyment or recreation.
Okay.
It often has certain elements. It can be ritualized, meaning it has rules. It usually has time limits, a beginning and an end, spatial boundaries like a field or a board, and it's often repetitive, which is how play can become traditional over time.
And it's not just for fun, right? It serves actual functions.
Absolutely crucial functions. Play helps train the body, develops coordination. It's vital for learning about rules, about cooperation, competition. It's a form of communication, socialization. It can be motivating. It lets us create alternative realities, step away from everyday life. Plus, simple exercise and stress reduction.
What are some examples? How does play look different across cultures?
Well, you have team games, familiar ones like soccer, American football, baseball. Lacrosse, interestingly, was adapted from a Native American game. Some games directly train for warfare or survival. Think of Yanomami children in South America learning to dodge small arrows, or traditional wrestling or shooting practice.
Wow, direct training.
Yeah. And then there's gambling. Guessing games, games of chance, racing. Think about the incredible tradition of Kenyan long-distance runners or the Tarahumara runners in Mexico. Play takes so many forms.
Okay, now let's turn to art. How does art fit into this expressive picture?
Well, art, in a broad sense, seems to reflect this basic human desire we have for harmony, for balance. It's a really fundamental form of communication. We usually break it down into categories: visual, verbal, musical, and performance art.
And like play, art isn't just about looking nice or sounding good. It has functions, too.
So many functions. Art can be used to motivate political change. Think propaganda posters. It can offer social commentary. It helps reinforce cultural norms and values. It can have psychological or even healing purposes. It's central to ritual and ceremony music, rhythmic movement we call dance. It announces status or group membership through dress, decoration, tattoos. And yes, of course, entertainment, aesthetics, even graffiti can be seen as a form of folk art.
Or interesting, and art can be hidden or obvious.
Right. Some of the most ancient art we know, like those incredible Paleolithic cave paintings at Lascaux in France, figure 12.2, show some of these breathtaking images of animals, symbols they were deep inside caves, hidden away. Why? We still debate that. Other art is very public, maybe marking territory or celebrating community identity.
Okay, let's break down those categories, starting with visual art.
Sure. Visual art includes two-dimensional forms, things drawn or painted, maybe on paper, canvas, tree bark, even the body itself. And three-dimensional forms like sculpture made from stone, ivory, metal, wood. Other types include decorated textiles, clothing, jewelry, and, as mentioned, body adornment, piercings, tattoos, scarification, which can reflect fashion, status, identity.
Any specific cultural examples?
Oh, many. Think of the vibrant painted art of Indigenous Australians. Traditionally on bark, using mineral paints depicting animals and Dreamtime stories, like in figure 12.3, now often on canvas too, or Arctic art, often embellishing functional items like tools, but also beautiful sculptures, maybe from walrus ivory, as shown in figure 12.4. There's even debate about what constitutes true traditional Arctic art versus evolving forms, and how art documents social and environmental change.
And you mentioned rock imagery.
Yes, that's a fascinating category of visual art. We distinguish between pictographs, which are images painted onto rock surfaces, like those European Paleolithic cave paintings we talked about.
Okay, painted on.
Then there are petroglyphs. These are images pecked, carved, or incised into the rock surface. Petroglyph Canyon in California, shown in figure 12.5, has thousands of these.
Decked in. Got it.
And finally, geoglyphs. These are huge figures created on the ground surface itself, often by removing darker rocks to reveal lighter soil underneath or arranging stones. The most famous example is probably the Nazca lines in Peru. Massive shapes of animals, plants, lines visible really only from the air. Figure 12.6 gives you a sense of their scale. Truly mysterious.
Wow. Okay, next category. Verbal art. The power of stories, you said.
Exactly. Verbal art covers a lot. Stories, legends, folktales, poetry, metaphors, rhymes, chants, drama, proverbs, jokes, puns, riddles, even tongue twisters.
Tongue twisters is art.
Well, they play with language. Beyond just entertainment, verbal art is critical for enculturation. It's how children often learn about their society, its history, its values, its rules. Oral tradition is absolutely key here. Cultural narratives passed down, often by elders, sometimes in specific settings, maybe winter nights around a fire, or during formal ceremonies like the potlatches of the Northwest Coast peoples.
Makes sense. Now, music. That feels like something truly universal.
It really does seem to be integral in all societies we know of. Music is an art form where the medium is sound and silence. It uses nonverbal auditory components, things like tonality, rhythm, pitch, repetition. It includes song, of course, and the use of instruments.
And functions are incredibly varied.
So varied. Entertainment, sure, self-expression. Building and maintaining group solidarity, think about national anthems or hymns, how they unite people. Contacting the supernatural, communicating feelings, maybe protest, synchronizing work like old work songs, just passing the time. Music can powerfully express the experiences, the plight of minority groups too. And, think about American popular music. The sheer number of love songs probably reflects a cultural obsession with romantic love.
That's an interesting point. What about instruments?
Well, musical instruments go way back. We have evidence of flutes and whistles made from bone dating back at least 42,000 years.
42,000 years. Incredible.
Isn't it? And beyond the familiar Western instruments, there's a huge diversity. Think of the didgeridoo of Indigenous Australians, that long, resonant wooden wind instrument shown in figure 12.7, or rattles, drums of all kinds, shells, horns, lutes. The anthropological study of music, by the way, has its own name, ethnomusicology.
Ethnomusicology, okay. And the final category, performance art.
Hmm.
Sounds like it often brings many of these other forms together.
It often does. Performance art is about dynamic action, think, dance, music, plays, recitations. It's generally done before an audience, though not always.
And its functions.
Again, varied. Entertainment is a big one. But it's also absolutely central to many ceremonial activities. Think about oral tradition. Telling those stories is often a performance. Even, you can argue, an anthropology professor giving a lecture is a kind of performance. Western ceremonies, too, a pope's confirmation, a presidential inauguration, holidays like Christmas or Easter, they all involve performance elements.
Where do these performances usually happen?
Well, in the West, we have specialized venues, theaters, concert halls, nightclubs. But performances also happen in non-specialized places, like school gyms or parks. In non-Western groups, performances might happen in the village center, a plaza, or sometimes in specially constructed facilities, like the amazing community houses built by Native societies on the northwest coast of North America. Figure 12.8 shows these huge, impressive structures were used for meetings, potlatches, religious rituals, reciting cosmology, putting on plays, all sorts of entertainment and serious business. And maybe we can focus specifically on dance for a moment, as Spotlight 12.2 does. Dance is basically rhythmic body movement. It's often choreographed, often accompanied by music, and people dance for countless reasons. Religion, ritual, communication, socializing, competition, celebration, entertainment, you name it. We can distinguish between theatrical dance, performed for an audience, and participatory dance, where everyone joins in.
And dancers often wear special clothing or use specific instruments.
Very often, yes. Participants might be decorated with specialized clothing, body paint, feathers. Music, especially drumming, is frequently used to establish the tempo, the rhythm.
Can you give some specific examples that show the range of dance?
Sure. Compare Western dance forms like ballet or social dancing with traditional ceremonial performances. The Hopi people in the American Southwest have their Kachina dances. These involve rhythmic movement, elaborate regalia representing supernatural beings, and the goal is to influence those beings for world renewal, good crops. I actually witnessed one back in 1973. It was quite powerful.
Wow.
Then you have the Maori haka from New Zealand. That's known for its dynamic body movements, foot stamping, shouting. It's used for celebration, welcoming guests, marking achievements, honoring occasions like funerals. Or the Maasai jumping dance, the adumu, which you can see in figure 12.9. Young men perform this incredibly high-jumping dance for ceremonial occasions like weddings or rites of passage.
That jumping dance is famous.
It is. And think about Hawaiian hula. The ancient form, kaihiko, visually communicated chants accompanied by traditional music using complex hand, foot, and hip movements. The modern form, awana, is often what tourists see, adapted post-European contact.
Dance can also have surprising social or even medical roles.
Definitely. Socially, think about the Tarahumara beer parties. Dance is central to the social interaction, maybe initiating relationships not so different from a Western bar or club scene, perhaps. And medically, a shaman might use rhythmic movement, chanting, essentially a form of dance, as part of a curing ritual for illness. So, just to quickly recap where we've explored how all societies possess unique knowledge about plants, animals, medicine, the cosmos. This ethnoscience is this incredibly rich resource, but it also highlights those critical ethical issues around intellectual property rights. And we touched on the ingenuity and value of traditional technology.
Right. And then we dove into the amazing world of expressive culture. We saw how play isn't just for kids, but crucial for learning and socializing. And how art, whether it's visual like rock imagery, verbal through oral tradition, musical, or performance art like dance, is just this fundamental way humans communicate, serving all these functions from entertainment and ritual to social commentary and healing.
Yeah, and we've seen how these diverse systems offer really valuable insights. Think of the accuracy of the Maya calendar, or the traditional Navajo understanding of disease vectors way before Western science figured it out.
So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for you, listening now, as you navigate our own complex world full of information and ways of expressing things?
That really leads to an important question, I think. When you consider these vast, nuanced knowledge systems across cultures, how might broadening our own understanding, our respect for these diverse ways of knowing, actually enrich how we approach today's challenges, whether it's health or sustainability or something else? What hidden wisdom might we be overlooking by sticking only to the familiar paths?
Plenty to think about there. We hope this deep dive into knowledge and expressive culture has sparked some new thoughts for you. Thank you so much for joining us.
And on behalf of the whole Last Minute Lecture team, thank you for listening. We hope you're leaving this feeling a little more well-informed and maybe just a lot more curious.